Hey everybody, it's Diane here. I decided to do this video because a lot of people have been asking about my comic collection. I don't talk much about comics. I talk a lot about my pinball and obviously the game stuff and everything, but I really haven't spent too much time talking about comic books. So I wanted to put together like a top 10 list of like my favorite comics, the comics that I like best. But when I did that, it kind of became obvious that I couldn't really stick to 10, so I decided to split it into Silver Age, which is what this video is, my top 10 Silver Age, and then maybe Bronze Age forward. I don't have any Golden Age. So without further ado, here's my number 10 pick, and that is Nick Fury, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., number 1. This is not his first appearance. His first appearance was Strange Tales 135, which I have, and it turns out this was my husband Nick's favorite character, so he has this copy, and a Strange Tales 135 too. So we've got that, and I had one also. So, but this one I picked because even though it's actually less valuable and maybe a little bit less significant than the Strange Tales, is I really just love the cover art. Like all these Nick Fury books, these early Nick Fury books, have like the coolest cover art that's been really copied time and time again, and used in various things, including pinball machines. There's pinball machines that have back glasses that are obviously inspired by the Nick Fury covers. So that's my number 10. Okay, number 9, and you're going to see a lot of this green guy here. The Hulk says he is my favorite Marvel character, with Spider-Man being a close second. This is Journey into Mystery 112. It is the first time the Hulk and Thor, who now you kind of see in the movies, have some sort of buddy relationship. This is the first time that they fought each other. It's a really obviously cool early Thor and Hulk, but also the story's kind of interesting in that Thor kind of retells it. You hear some kids arguing over who would win in a fight, and he kind of retells this story that supposedly happens between the panels in Avengers, I want to say 3. I think that's right. That it's not shown in Avengers 3. It kind of does this backstory about it here. So that's my number 9. Number 8, as I just mentioned, my second favorite Marvel character is Spider-Man. And this is one of my earlier Spider-Mans that I own. It's one that's, I think, a really cool one. It's Spider-Man number 12, I didn't mention. It's an early appearance of Doc Octopus. I don't know if it's his second or third appearance, but it's an early appearance of him. I really love all these early Spider-Mans, just the covers, the stories, just everything about them. They're just great comics. So that's why I picked this one. Okay, now we're down to number 7. For which I picked, again, hey, look, the Hulk. I picked Tales to Astonish 59. This is an issue where the Hulk and Giant Man fight, and it's kind of the precursor to the Hulk's next partial series, or half series, whatever you want to call it, because starting with issue 60, the book Tales to Astonish splits into Giant Man, 10 issues, 10 pages of Giant Man, I think, and like 10 pages of Hulk. So it's split stories, and eventually Giant Man drops off, and Namor takes the other half of the book, and in 102 it turns back into the Incredible Hulk. So it's interesting to me, it's funny to me that I never really collected these as a kid, mainly because they're very early issues. I mean this is kind of one of the very early Hulk appearances after the end of his 6-issue or original run. But my logic then, and it still holds true now, though I finally started collecting them, is that it was like half an issue, because I don't care about the Giant Man story, and I cared even less about the Namor stories. So it's like, well, why should I pay like the premium for half a story when I could spend that same amount and get a full Hulk story? So that was my logic then. So, but I am collecting them again now. I didn't mention actually how much I paid for the comics. I just realized I forgot that whole part, but I was going to mention it. The Nick Fury, I know I paid $35 for in 1990. The Hulk, the Journey into Mystery with Thor fighting the Hulk, I paid $157.50. That was in January. And the Spider-Man 12, that was sometime last year. It was somewhere over between $100 and $150. I cannot remember exactly. But this one, I do not have the price written on it, but I know it's one I bought relatively recently. I believe. Yeah, I don't want to get. I don't want to speculate how much I paid for this. I should have looked this one up. I'm not positive. So next down though is my number 6. Hey, a DC book, Batman number 155. This is the first Silver Age appearance of the Penguin. I don't even know how I got this book. This is a book that I must have gotten in the late 80s and early 90s when I got back into comic book collecting. See, I sold off. I had 3 phases of comic collecting. My first was when I was a kid, like early 70s to late 70s. I sold those off to buy a car, including an Amazing Fantasy 15, which obviously is deeply regretful today. And then kind of in the later 80s and early 90s, I got back into it. And then I faded off, and then now in the last few years, this is kind of my 3rd phase of going through comic collecting. Anyway, I know I got this one, since I sold off my original collection, I know I got this one in the 80s, early 90s. I don't remember what I paid for it, and I don't even remember why I bought it. I mean, I like Batman. Batman's my favorite DC character. I just must have gotten a really good deal on it, and you can see it's in really quite nice condition for its age. Okay, so number 6. What is 6? Nope, that was number 6. I'm sorry. Number 5. Yep, number 5 is Showcase 34, another DC book here, and this is the first Silver Age appearance of the Atom. Classic cover. Again, this is another one I bought in the late 80s, early 90s. I believe I paid like $65, maybe $70 for this. It was something around then, back then. Really cool book, really classic looking book, and I always did like the Atom as a kid, though I wouldn't put him in my, he's not one of my top guys. I just always thought he was kind of a cool character, and he had some of the coolest covers. So that's that one. Now we're getting down into some of the meat here. This is number 4, which is the Incredible Hulk number 4. This is the lowest numbered issue of Hulk I have. I also have a 6. These are pretty hard to come by in reasonable condition for a reasonable price. I paid a little bit over $200 for this one last year. I also have a 6. I'm still trying to get the others. The one that has always been my holy grail, and I've never gotten close to getting it. In fact, my Amazing Fantasy 15 back in the day, I was saving for Hulk 1, and I couldn't find one. And I found the Amazing Fantasy 15 and settled for that. But anyway, that's why this Hulk, the Incredible Hulk number 4 is in here. It's actually the lowest issue of the Hulk I've ever owned. When I collected originally, I had 4, 5, and 6. I didn't have anything earlier than that. I'm hoping to break that this year and get either a 2 or a 3. We'll see. So now we're into the top 3, and here we go. Flash number 123. I mean, what an iconic cover. It features it brings back in the Golden Age Flash. I picked this one up in the 80s, late 80s, early 90s. Do not recall what I paid for it, but I just saw it and I just thought this is just so great, and so classic, and so iconic. I had to get this one. It's one I still love. It's a great story too. Condition on it is got a little bit of a water stain there, a little fold there, but overall pretty darn nice, really. For as old of a book it is, it's pretty nice. And now down to my 2, and these are the biggies. And this one, Hawkman number 1. Now, Hawkman number 1 is not an exceptionally rare book, and it's not even an exceptionally expensive book, except when you get into a grade like that. when you're getting into the 9.6, I believe there's only 6 or 8 of these registered, and there's only one that's better as far as grade. It's a 9.8 in the CGC database. The story behind this book and why it's here, because I'm really not much of a Hawkman fan at all, is I went out to Mile High Comics back in the early 90s when I was collecting, and I'd always heard of Mile High Comics as a kid. They advertised in the comics. There was the Mile High collection, was a big deal back then, and so I always wanted to get there, and so I was like, if I get there, I've got to buy something cool. Now, I was on a very limited budget, and at the time, the best I could do was about 30 or 40 bucks, and in that range, I found this Hawkman #1 in exceptionally beautiful condition. This book is from, I believe, 64? Yeah, 64. So I picked that up and have held on to it all those years. I know exactly what I paid for this. I paid $30, which I know is hard to believe now. And I just got a CGC rated last year at a 9.6. I'm not exactly sure the value of this, but it's definitely in the multiple thousands. Like, I've had offers of $4,000 and up. I see one other one for sale, but it's been for sale for a long time at a lot more than that. But suffice to say, it's went up tremendously in value. And in fact, I'm actually considering trading this away to maybe get some of those things, like those earlier Hulks that I want. So if anybody's interested in buying or trading for this, let me know. So that's my #2, Hawkman #1. And now for my #1 choice. And how could it not be? The Amazing Spider-Man #1. This book, as I said, Spider-Man is my second favorite Marvel character. I really wanted a #1, and there's a whole story behind it I won't bore you with, but I sought one out and got this one back in 1989, maybe 88, and it cost me, I still have the receipt, $299 and I believe 88 cents, just under $300. Got a CGC graded in the last year, and it came out as a 3.0, which is very, very decent for a Spider-Man #1. I mean, this is just, again, a great, classic, iconic book. Spider-Man, the Fantastic Four, his origin is retold. I mean, it pretty much has everything that for me in a comic really attracts me to them. So that's my #1. If you guys like this and found it at all interesting, I will do the other one, which will be the Bronze Age and up. Or if you want more details and stuff, let me know. Thanks, and maybe see you later.